Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Prize Inside, a chiropractor's journey on the 1% Tribe Edition. This is where we go over what we can do to improve our lives 1% better today and then tomorrow. And then by the end of the year, you're 364% better. And we give you a couple of the tools to do that. So tonight, on Sunday night, what we like to do is either go over a thought, a toxin, or a trauma. Those are the three areas, if you've been with us before, that cause your innate intelligence, the intelligence within, to be interfered with. So what our job is to get out of the way. Get out of the way of the innate intelligence of our body. Just get it to work how it's supposed to. And how you do that is to remove a lot of these things that get in the way. And with that, understand all the things, the different processes that are there. So tonight we're going to talk about, the title of tonight is Hormone Harmony, and this is herbs for women and men. So what we're going to do, I usually do one specific herb. This time I want to go through like systems of them. And so we're going to do this quite a bit on the herbal one. I think it'll be helpful in the knowledge of it because we'll kind of walk through a few hormonal processes, right? And of course, tonight we're going to give you some herbal recommendations. Please, always on any of this, seek a physician. Make sure your doctor and you are on the same page. This is not medical advice. I just want to give you what's out there, because one of the things that when I started learning herbals, like all the herb remedies, actions, all those kind of things, what was profound was the knowledge that is sitting right in front of us. The literal plants that get grown in, could be potentially grown in our yard, that have so much medicinal value, yet we don't hardly ever talk about those things. And so that's where, and hormonal health is one of those topics that was mind-blowing how much good information is in, the plant-based reality of the herbs and, nutrition and everything else. And we just don't go there, as a society. And a lot of times, before we get started, let's do our little rundown. And tonight will be very important to do this. Make sure you do this. I'm giving you a heads up. Okay, so subscribe to my newsletter at tribe1, tribe1.substack.com. That's where we get, we take the transcript of this, kind of do an AI magic. And then if you miss anything, it's right there. So you'll have that. Get on subscribing to the Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey on Rumble, the Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey on YouTube, or do Spotify, anything you guys like to do. I'm sure the audio one is, you guys will enjoy a whining dog in the back behind me. She's got her bone. She's tearing it up. So, but yeah, so do all those things, especially tribe1.substack.com tonight, because there's going to be a cool a cool breakdown of what we're going to go over tonight. Okay. So, biggest thing is just understanding. This is like a Kickstarter in understanding. Look at what's out there for certain conditions, that potentially could, help somebody change all those things. We wait so long. We wait so long into the sick care model that it becomes overwhelming at that point. And so hormones are no different. It's this giant chemical communication pathway throughout your body. I always say your nervous system's like your electrical signal. Your hormones would be, the fluids in your body, in your car, right? So it's all these different ones, and you got to have them all working perfect. Hormones are a lot more complicated in the human body than fluids in your car, though. It's they communicate themselves. It's like I like calling it the liquid nervous system, but that's just a thought process that I have, and it's so important, like as we go forward. So tonight's going to be a lot about that. We're going to go through a few different things that you can look at as like groupings of herbs that could have potential, but to help you in the condition that we'll go over. The biggest thing is there's three major things that I want to talk to you before we do that. Number one is lifestyle changes. So like lifestyle changes will always be a key factor. So when you're looking at these, a lot of times, let's say our gut microbiome's way off, or we don't get our spine checked on a regular basis. A lot of these different things are going to be super helpful. We're going to talk about herbs, but my high recommendation is get your gut microbiome fixed first, right? Make sure that the herbs that you're taking, you can actually digest, right? So that'd be a good one. Highly recommend getting your chiropractic evaluation and make sure that your nervous system's working the way it should as well. So just to make sure we get the most out of what we're doing. Okay. So with those two out of the way, let us begin hormone harmony. And there's going to be a little bit in there for dudes too. Obviously, that's a thing. Much bigger thing than the society would like to know, but the men's health is in here as well. Hopefully you guys are having a great weekend as well. Tonight's tea of the night is I did raspberry and passion flower. So I always pick this one as the go-to when I'm not sure because it's so delicious. So remember that. This is like a straight up just a loose leaf tea. So it's really, really good. Okay. So let us start. So hormone harmony, herbs for women and men. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. What we're going to go over tonight, we're going to walk through some major women's hormonal stages in detail, and then turn into often overlooked men's side as well, and finish with how to actually build simple and effective herbal toolkits. Remember, these are just guidelines. They're not for everything, but you're going to have some nice toolkits that you can work in the herbal world. Okay, by the end of it. So how we approach these areas, which we kind of talked about, it's going to be herbs are just a piece of the puzzle, right? So that's a big aspect. There's chiropractic. There's a lot of self-care type situations that we really want to make sure that we're taking care of the rest of our body. That's why we say thoughts, toxins, trauma. It's not just the herbs, right? I see this constantly. Everybody wants the one herb to like turn the corner on a giant complexity like a hormone situation. Okay. And so that is, you got to do them all. Okay. So let's just get rolling. All right. Oh, that shouldn't have said that. What are nervines? We already did that. See, I used the same outline, but so think about this. That shouldn't have had that on the top. But a woman in her 30s whose periods have turned into monthly chaos, a man in his 40s who feels his drive, energy, and confidence quietly slipping away. These are all different symptoms, but there's a same root: hormones that have fallen out of harmony. Today, we're covering the plant and holistic approaches that can help both. All right, here we go. So, what we're going to go over first is how the hormones work. It doesn't make sense to throw you a bunch of stuff in the herbal remedy when we don't know what they do. Okay, so we're going to talk in women. We're going to do estrogen, progesterone, androgens, cortisol, and thyroid. Those are again, there's tons of different hormone signaling. There's different kinds of hormones all over the body, but these are kind of the main players that we got to start talking about. In men, we're going to talk about testosterone. We're going to talk about DHT, which we'll discuss a little bit, cortisol, estrogen balance, and thyroid. So it's not too far off. Then we're going to discuss quickly the HPA. We're going to give a little rundown of this, but this thing called the HPA and HPG axes, and they're stress and reproductive systems that talk to each other constantly. And then how herbs usually work. Are they they're nourishing, they're modulating? For you that everybody that's been here before on any of our herb talks, you kind of understand where they're at. Each herb has its own action. And so you kind of start learning those. One that everybody remember, it's very popular in the news, is like ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is really popular because it's an adaptogen. An adaptogen is kind of good for all the alls. It's really good, just overall body health, right? And so that's the thing. It has this action of improving the entire organ system. That would be an adaptogen. So that's a good example. Okay. So let's just break down the women's health ones first. Okay. So we're going to do estrogen. So think of estrogen as the builder and energizer. Okay. So estrogen is this builder and energizer. It grows the uterine lining each month, keeps skin and joints plump and moist, supports mood and brain sharpness, and helps maintain bone strength. When it's too high or too low, women often feel the difference in their cycles, energy, mood. Now we're going to so these are just going to be breakdowns a little bit, so you can give you guys an idea what estrogen's doing for you. So remember, estrogen is a builder energizer, kind of getting your body ready for that uterus, the newborn baby, all those things. Progesterone is the calmer and protector. After ovulation, it rises to balance estrogen, soothe the nervous system, help sleep, and prepare the body for a possible pregnancy. When progesterone is low relative to estrogen, many women notice anxiety, poor sleep, and heavy menstrual periods. Okay. So those are two. I just want to walk through these different hormones so that you kind of got an idea. And if you become a member, a newsletter, it's a free one. Tribe1, tribe1.substack.com. You're going to have a newsletter of all this. So just let you know that. Okay. So androgens. This is also androgens and one of it includes is testosterone. Okay, but we're in the women area right now. But women make small amounts of these drive and strength hormones. They do make them though. Okay, they're still there. They support libido, muscle tone, motivation, and confidence. When androgens get too high, this is very common in what they call PCOS or polycystic ovary syndrome. Women can experience acne, unwanted hair growth, irregular cycles. When they're too low, drive and energy can drop. Okay, so that's a big thing in testosterone. There's a balance that needs to be had. That women don't have as much as men do. However, it's still present. Cortisol. This is one that a lot of people know what that is. So cortisol is the body's main stress hormone. It's the get up and go, fight or flight chemical. In short bursts, it's really helpful. When it stays high for months or years, it steals resources from the sex hormones and can mess up periods, fertility, sleep, and weight. Most of the time, you're going to see a lot of cortisol reaction. One of the things that we don't do, this one, I'll talk to you guys about this one. if somebody in the 1% tribe starts to understand how holistic health works, cortisol, in many, many times, I see it all the time, is people fight and try to find cortisol related herbs to do that. Now, there are those out there that help that, but what are we really doing when we're sitting in a high stress life and not taking any of that time? It's constantly going and going and going. The cortisol is naturally doing what it's supposed to. Does that make sense? It's doing what it's supposed to if you're like running and gunning and busy all the time and worried about this and worried about that and high octane all the time. But that's what cortisol does. That's why it's so nerve-wracking when somebody plays, let's say they have a high intensity shoot 'em up, let's say video game. Super intense all the time. You're looking to survive, with this video game, drives your cortisol level to the moon. Is cortisol wrong? No, you're literally going through the woods with a weapon in one of the most realistic scenes possible. And you're going to have this high octane cortisol going all the time. The problem is once it gets over over a threshold, it makes so much of this cortisol reaction that your body starts having major issues. And that's what I want you to really, really focus in on cortisol, not just like take this herb and your cortisol will be better. Maybe take a chill pill in the sense of read a book, meditate, visualize, do something that brings your body down that way so that you can at least give yourself a break versus trying to find the next pill, right? And the final one for women is thyroid hormones. This is very common. So these are the body's metabolic thermostat. They control how fast or slow everything runs: energy, temperature, mood, cycle, regulatory, and weight. When the thyroid is under or overactive, it can look a lot like a hormone imbalance, even if estrogen and progesterone are fine. Okay. So these are, hopefully this is giving you a good breakdown of what we're looking at. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the key men's ones on our side. And because it's a big deal, like the hormone balance is just not a thing that in men's health we really do, except for one hormone, and that's testosterone, which we kind of know, that's always been there, but there's other ones. That's what I want to talk about. So the first one, obviously, is testosterone. It is the primary vitality drive hormone in men. It supports muscle, motivation, confidence, libido, bone strength, and overall energy. It naturally declines with age, stress, poor sleep, and excess body fat, which is why many men notice a gradual drop in drive and recovery in their 40s and beyond. Okay. So one of the things that happens is you can see it's the primary vitality and drive hormone in men, but if it's going all the time, right, overall energy, or if we're sitting at a high cortisol level where we need a lot of testosterone, eventually your testosterone will start to fade. And so it's the same concept as the thyroid stuff, right? So we were just talking about, or the cortisol in general, but I digress. So DHT is the next one that men should pay attention to. It is a stronger, more concentrated form of testosterone. That's all you got to know, technically. It's important for male characteristics, but when there's too much of it in certain tissues, it can contribute to hair loss on the scalp and prostate enlargement. Okay. So that's a big one. DHT, one that not a lot of people talk about, but that if you have too much of it, it can be a major issue. Okay. Cortisol. Cortisol is what we talked about. It's the exact same as in men as it is in women. Chronically high cortisol levels through high levels of, anxiety, stress, all those kind of things, produces belly fat and a vicious cycle of low energy and drive. Okay. That's why we're going through these, is because of this. Now, here's the last one in men. In men, this is a true story. This is one of my favorites in herbals. A man named Dr. Chi taught me a ton of this. Okay. Estrogen balance in men. Okay. Men need a little estrogen for bone health, brain function, and libido, but not too much. There's a perfect balance between testosterone and estrogen. That's what we're going for. Extra body fat can convert testosterone into estrogen, leading to lower drive, mood changes, and sometimes breast tenderness or softer muscle tone. And then the last one, okay, so that's a big deal for men. Just remember estrogen balance when you're looking at your, let's say, blood work. By the way, do the thing in the top corner. If you see that QR code up there, it'll create a full script account. It's like Amazon shopping for nutritional supplements. There's like 35,000 supplements. You can just choose it. The cool part though is if you do that, you link to my stuff. And so if we ever have a conversation, I can send you things. It's so cool. And excited times, me and you can talk about nutritional blood work. I have like in there right now 18 to 19 different tests that you and I can do. I did the men's health one. I had Rachel do the women's health one. Fascinating and super convenient. So that's where the world's going. We're going to I want these skills at your fingertips. You guys have been great. All my 1% tribers especially on Sunday night, you do the things. I want to start getting those tools so you can do the things, right? So we don't have to wait around for weeks and weeks and forget and all those kind of things. Okay. So, and the last thing for men, so estrogen is one we got to talk about, and thyroid hormones. Thyroid hormones in the exact same role as in women. It is the metabolic thermostat, right? So it helps metabolism, right? Don't we tell people all the time, we've talked about metabolic syndrome, right? Where we're not burning energy. If thyroid hormones are in charge of your metabolic thermostat, wouldn't you think that would be a good place for us to be? I would think so, right? I would think we would want to know more and more about those things. So low thyroid function in men can mimic low testosterone with fatigue, weight gain, low mood, poor recovery. So it's important to not overlook it. Okay. All right. So after this, I promise you, I just wanted to get through these pieces, and I promise you I'm going to give you some great herbs. I promise. Okay. So the next two are two big ones that I want you to think about and focus on a little bit. These are things I don't want you to pretend you have to become an expert on, but if you hear them, it starts making sense. There's two big communication systems within hormones, okay? Within hormones. That's awesome. So within hormone system. So think of like in the nervous system, you have your brain, your spinal cord. Those would be two communication systems, a little bit different each one. In hormones, there are systems like that. This first one is called the HPG axis. So this one's hypothalamic pituitary gonadal, okay, axis. So that means hypothalamic, pituitary, and they are gonads or our sex organs, right? Men testes, women ovaries. So what happens is there is a connection hormonally through all of them, and this is the communication pathway, okay? So this is like the highway between all of them. This is the reproductive control center, okay? So this is the reproductive control center. The brain talks to pituitary, which then talks to the ovaries or testes. When this conversation is very clear, the cycles stay regular and testosterone stays healthy. Stress, lack of sleep, or nutrient gaps can make the signals fuzzy, okay? So your hypothalamus is in your brain. That part of your brain talks to the pituitary that's in your brain as well. And then those, through the hormones, are actually communicating to your ovaries and testes. Now you can see, like, if we have thoughts, toxins, traumas, right? High stress, high cortisol, right? if we keep living in that lifestyle, a lot of times you're going to start seeing these things throw off. Okay. So that would be one of the major things. The other axis I want to talk about is called the HPA axis. Okay. So this is the HPA, same two beginning ones. So you have the hypothalamus is in your brain that goes to your pituitary. So the hypothalamus tells your pituitary then talks to your adrenal glands. So this is the stress control center. So isn't that interesting that hormones drive your reproduction control center and your stress control center? So this is the stress control center, the HPA axis. It manages cortisol. So you can imagine in American society where this one is, it's all jinked. It's probably running. Cortisol is the one. HPA axis is probably the one that doesn't know what your speedometer on your car is broke. That's what I'm guessing with most of our HPA axes. But when the HPA axis is overworked for too long, which is probably all the time, it interferes with the HPG axis, which is the communication up there because it's the same two areas, which is why chronic stress so often shows up as period problems in women or low testosterone symptoms in men. So a lot of times they're all big communication systems, right? Like we talked about, you got to have multiple, in your body. The nervous system is one major one. Your gut microbiome is another one because of the digestive, your hormone system, right? We have to have all these chemical communicators perfect as well, and that is the big kicker. So hopefully this wasn't too boring. I try to give you the main hormones of like what they do so that when we go over these procedures that we're going to talk about, it'll make more sense. Okay. So it'll make more sense of why I focus on these in the herbal world. Okay. So here is where we're going to give, so before we start, if you become a subscriber at Tribe One, TRIB1, I'll put it up as a banner, tribe1.substack.com. Not only this week are we going to do a newsletter with just what we've talked about today, but I have an activity sheet. Basically, it breaks down all these things that we're going to talk about in each of these processes. So we're going to talk about the monthly cycle and PMS, kind of a good game plan. So each area is going to have its own game plan. Okay. And so these are herbs to think about, right? I'm not your doctor. So just make sure you consult your physician, all that stuff. Right. But the big thing is like these little game plans can get you a kickstart and going, oh my gosh, I didn't know all this stuff. I didn't know all this stuff was available to me, just in the herbal world. Okay. All right. So this is what we're going to talk about. All right. So this is the monthly cycle and PMS. So this is in this area, we're going to talk about the symptom picture. So cramps that radiate to the back, to the thighs, breast tenderness, bloating, rage or tearfulness, heavy or clotting flow, short or long cycles. Okay. So what usually happening hormonally with this area, this is the more common one. So we're going to go, there's several. I would say, if you're having major, cycle issues, consult, like your doc and your chiropractor that knows herbs, because we could talk about, there's a lot of options. But this is like kind of the go-to at first. So what usually happens hormonally is estrogen is dominant relative to progesterone. Prostaglandin starts creates inflammation. And we also have a magnesium deficiency. So those are kind of what's usually occurring in the general populace, right? So let's say 70% of women, that would be the thing with those symptoms. So here is the key herbs that we would think about doing in the herbal world. One called Vitex. The other name for it is the chast tree berry. Very big in Chinese medicine. Vitex helps the pituitary signal better progesterone production. This is best taken long term in the morning. So this one in the Chinese culture, many women over 30 are on it on a regular basis. Why we don't, time will tell. I think we really need to start focusing in on something like this, because if it's helping the pituitary signal and creating your better progesterones, like you're allowing that innate intelligence to do what it's supposed to. Okay. So the next herb is cramp bark and black haw or black haw. This relaxes the uterine smooth muscle, and it's really good as a tea or a tincture at the first sign of pain. It's one of these, this one's more of the acute type situation. So if you're having the bad cycle at that moment, then cramp bark or black hawk is black haw, excuse me. I don't know why I said hawk. Haw is a really good tea to like kind of calm those heavier cycles down, right? Evening primrose oil or a borage oil is great for you can put it on right on your breast for the breast tenderness, but also mood symptoms. So a lot of times evening primrose, I've seen this one quite a lot in my herbal stuff. Does some good work, man, especially in the mood symptom type situation. And then the last one, just your monthly cycle and PMS, is ginger and turmeric. It's an anti-inflammatory powerhouse that helps for pain and heaviness. So if you look, we're not attacking too hard. There is a lot more, guys. There's a lot more herbs that can do some things, but this is a good starting pack. Like, let's say you're a starter pack and you're like sick of having these heavy cycles or, those kind of things, or it knocks me into next week. Try this grouping, right? Vitex, very simple, not expensive, those kind of things. Vitex, cramp bark or black haw, evening primrose or borage oil, and then ginger and turmeric. Okay. So, and then the one other tip that I was reading on, timing tip. Most of these start in the luteal phase. So this is after ovulation for best results. So like maybe after the period had started, that would be the time. Okay. So the biggest thing is just anytime with herbs, just be cautious if you have like heavy bleeding, anemia, those kind of conditions. Just make sure you're consulting your doctor. I would expect nothing different. You don't want to do this on your own anyway. Okay. So that was monthly cycle and PMS. And this one's kind of cool. This one's fertility and preconception. So this is planning ahead of the game. Okay. So we're planning to get pregnant. What would you do? Right. And so I would change my perspective as a chiropractor over these years after the herbal training and give my planning parents this kind of situation, just because it's such a cool time, but at the same time, a nerve-wracking time, because you want to be the best you possibly can. So beyond just the get pregnant, healthy ovulation, thick uterine linings, cervical mucus, egg quality, and emotional readiness must be on there. Not just getting pregnant, right? Want to be the best we can for this little baby to come in there. So the key herbs for this would be red raspberry leaf. It's a very good uterine tonic. Very good for blood supply in general. Shatavari is a deep female reproductive tonic and demulcent. Okay, says that helps cool and moisten tissues. Okay, so it's Shatavari is I think it's a Ayurvedic medicine supplement that is really, really good. But it's a good reproductive tonic just to get everything ready. Nettle leaf is another one they recommend. This one builds iron and overall nourishment for the uterine area, ovulation, everything. And maca, M-A-C-A, this supports energy and hormonal resistance without forcing estrogen. Okay. So this is kind of getting all this in there and trying to rebalance, kind of like what I say when an adaptogen would act like. Okay. So this is one of those that you could, if you got a great OB, go OB, midwife, doula, any of those things, bring this list and go, hey, I'm planning on doing this. Can we check and see how I'm doing throughout the process, right? So that could be a really, really good one for all of us. But the biggest thing is gentle guidance. Like, this is for, stepping up and making sure we're ready, because there's so many people that it's kind of scary how infertile we have become. The number keeps going up, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. But that's what our mission has always been, is to flip those numbers around, right? All right. So that was fertility and preconception. Okay. So this one's interesting because I could do a whole 4-hour talk on these. So we're going to do a little bit, just touching the surface, right, of certain conditions. This one's called PCOS. It's very common now, polycystic ovary syndrome. And then there's another one that's coming. It's called and these are androgen dominant patterns. Okay. So here, and we won't go into, some of you know what these are because you've either got diagnosed with them, those kind of situations. But the full symptom cluster of these type of conditions are irregular or missing period, cystic acne, facial hair, thinning scalp, central weight gain, blood sugar crashes, and mood instability. So what happens is the underlying drivers are insulin resistance, which happens with, if we eat a ton of really bad, crappy carbs, women just pay the price very, very deeply. Elevated androgens and chronic low-grade inflammation. Okay, so these are all things. Now, these two areas are much bigger than what I'm going through. I just wanted to give you kind of the herbal pack to look at, right, for these type of situations. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, because we don't want to be like a 9-hour podcast. Okay, so the key herbs, if you're looking at PCOS or androgen dominant patterns, is spearmint. One of a good one would be spearmint tea. It's one of the very few plants to be shown to lower free testosterone. Okay. So that's kind of cool. So free testosterone sometimes needs to be controlled, and spearmint tea can be that, right? PCOS is a weird condition where there is that testosterone is kind of going around, creating a major issue. The difference is, really, don't think that testosterone is just floating around and, all of a sudden you're a man or something. The idea is that the estrogen testosterone ratio is messed up, and we have to get that back. And that's one of the things with the PCOS type situation. Licorice and white peony. These are classic. This is a classic Chinese combination that helps clear androgens and helps support ovulation. Okay, so licorice and white peony. Now, licorice, you must have a doctor, around you before you take it. It's very up and down with, especially if you're taking medicines, just make sure you rock doctor's recommendation all the time. But that is a Chinese herb that's been one of the mainstays that we don't use over here for the very similar conditions, right? Vitex, because if you do it in lower doses in this situation, it can help rebalance all the alls, because that's Vitex. It's amazing. And then the last one is cinnamon or berberine containing plants. This is for insulin sensitivity. More and more, we're seeing a ton of what they call insulin sensitivity, where we're not taking care of that insulin correctly because our gut microbiome may be messed up, or our sugars are jank. Something is throwing that off. Cinnamon or berberine containing plants end up helping that quite a bit. So hopefully this is making sense to you. And okay, so now we're getting into the one that probably everybody would be very interested in, that I know around me, because I'm that age, right? So perimenopause and menopause. Okay, the long transition from 4 to 10 years, erratic cycles, hot flashes, night sweats, sleep fragmentation, anxiety, and depression spikes, joint aches, vaginal dryness, changing libido, brain fog. crazy amounts of stuff that can happen in perimenopause and menopause. What's shifting? Fluctuating, then declining estrogen and progesterone, rising follicular stimulating hormone, which is called FSH, and cortisol sensitivity. So we had so much cortisol, so much stress all the time. All of these hormones are janked. That's what it is. But it's a little too little too late, because we should have been meditating 4 years prior to this situation. Okay. So that's the hard part. Or understanding medicinal herbs 4 years prior to where it is, but we didn't know that. So that's okay. That's how it happens. All right. So these are the key herbs for perimenopause and menopause. Black cohosh. Black cohosh is the most researched for hot flashes and mood. So that's a very good one. This, again, ask your doctor, go with a doctor, make sure it's on there. Sage. Sage is a classic drying and cooling herb for night sweats. Very, very good one. While I was doing this research, I didn't think about that one. I was like, dang it. That's how many herbs, guys, in the women's health and hormone is crazy. Shatavari and ashwagandha together. Okay. So this is another Chinese combination, but shatavari and ashwagandha rebuild moisture and resilience, kind of does that adaptogen things, rebuilding the organ systems in. Motherwort. Motherwort's very good. I found out you can grow this in Michigan, actually. Motherwort, specifically for heart pounding anxiety that appears in this phase. So motherwort's a good one as a go-to if anxiety is a part of your perimenopause or menopause. Red clover is the one you hear about a lot. So, but you can see how it's like number 5 or 6, which is crazy, because black cohosh should be the number one thought process. But so red clover or mild phytoestrogens when appropriate. So those are ones that can help just an overall menopausal situation. So differentiating cooling versus building can depend on whether the woman feels hot and agitated or cold and depleted. Okay. So that's what they're kind of in Chinese medicine. They use cold and dry a lot. And it's a really good way to describe. Sometimes it makes more sense saying it that way than the other ways. So that's what that's all about. Okay. So now we're going to talk about, we've gone through quite a few, conditions there, which I'm really happy about, so all of these, if you get on my Tribe1, TRIB1, that's substack.com. Let me see. Let me put it in the chat just to make sure you guys got it. And I got to make sure. And all you got to do is put your email address in there. It'll do it. All right. So tribe1.substack.com. I'm going to put that right in the chat. You're going to get this entire a nice little game plan notebook or sheet to get you through all of these. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about the big one. So the reason I went through all those hormones mainly is to show you that these a lot of other hormones caused a lot of your other ones, your female reproductive, your male reproductive hormones to be off, right? And so really we have to make sure we don't just rely on, hey, I have a female issue, I'm going to take female hormones, because of this, the real hidden driver: sleep, stress, and thyroid, right? So quick, important layer: huge chronic cortisol. So stress, resources, it starts to steal resources from the sex hormone in both women and men. That's one of the problems. Core supportive herbs that can help with this. Okay. So on top of the different ones, whatever condition that you saw, these are some other core supportives that I would recommend highly, because most of these conditions, guys, that you have weren't overnight, and it's not magically just a thing. Okay. It was over a lot of time in stressful situations, whatever it is. Okay. So core supportive herbs would be ashwagandha, holy basil, lemon balm, passion flower, and nettle seed. So these aren't as specific as what the lists that I gave you before, that kind of thing. However, probably more important, in all honesty, because we got to always look for the causation, right? And the causation always leads back to what? Thoughts, toxins, traumas, right? High intense thoughts, chronic stress all the time, toxicities of eating crap food, fake sugars, all those kind of things, right? And then you have the traumas, day-to-day operations, sitting all day, not getting 10, our human body's supposed to like walk 8 miles a day and we get, 50 yards, that kind of thing. Those thoughts, toxins, and traumas where everything comes back to. So you're going to have to know you're going to need some stress support. Okay. And ashwagandha, holy basil, lemon balm, passion flower, or nettle seed could help you out with that. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about men's health. Okay. Very common pattern, and it's almost a parallel journey, but no one talks about it. Okay. So common patterns. You have a gradual drop in free testosterone. If you get some rise, that one DHT hormone that we talked about, if that starts rising, then your prostate starts having issues. If you have higher body fat, a lot of times that's higher estrogen problem. So when we talked before, if you remember, there's an estrogen testosterone ratio. Okay. And then between those two, if it gets off in either direction, right? And we have too much of one of the other, then we start having issues. Dr. Chi, one of my favorite presenters on this subject, one of the things we do in society is, let's say, in a lot of our foods have a ton of estrogen in it. Why? Because that makes the animals fatter. So they give estrogen to their animals to get the weight up so that they can make more at the market. That is legit why we have such a lot of estrogen in our food. A lot of different chemicals cause these estrogen reactions too. So in a man, if you say, let's say testosterone is supposed to be 2, estrogen is supposed to be 1. Well, if our food sources are moving us from our estrogen up to 1.5, then we start doing things. We start gaining weight. That estrogen testosterone, it starts competing. So then our sexual drive goes down, right? So one of the things that occurs is we want a 2-to-1 ratio, no matter what. That means if there's excess estrogen in our system, we want to get rid of that, right? We want to get rid of that stuff. What we do currently in medicine, which is hilarious, is we just keep eating the estrogen stuff and it goes up to 1.5. So then we give men testosterone to inject them with it. And so then we go up to try to get to that 2-to-1 ratio. But now we've just put so much more hormone in the system. And then we wonder why, we start getting cancers and stuff, because the unbalanced hormones lead to so much bad health situations. So anyway, the big thing is just looking at all of those things, right? And so you could have a cortisol-driven fatigue. It all parallels to exactly, we just don't have a ton of, diagnosis codes or whatever for the same thing that women suffer with: low motivation, fertility decline, all those things. But the key symptom clusters for men: low energy drive, lower libido, belly fat, mood flatness, poor recovery after workouts, prostate enlargement symptoms. Okay. So here is some good core herbals that maybe my men should think about. Okay. So in testosterone and vitality to support, they should look at ashwagandha, one called Tongkat Ali. I'm guessing that's a Chinese herb. And that one you spell, if you're listening, it's Tongkat Ali, like Ali. Okay. So ashwagandha has probably got the highest adaptogenic, way for the testosterone and vitality support. So that's where you could stick. Very, very good one. Maca maca, M-A-C-A, and fenugreek are all testosterone and vitality support. For prostate and DHT balance, you're looking at saw palmetto, nettle root, and pygeum. Okay. Stress and cortisol control is ashwagandha and holy basil again. And this also overlaps in with women, and it's useful in highlights, right? It doesn't matter because it's stress and cortisol. Both should be looking at that. Circulatory and nitric oxide support. This one's an interesting one, I thought. I got another one for this list I thought of once we wrote it, but pine bark, garlic, cayenne pepper, which I tried, man. Cayenne's rough. Beets, though. Beets are a really good alternative, too, for the nitric oxide and circulation. Just remember that one. Like powdered beets or, as a supplement, amazing. Fertility specific, maca, M-A-C-A, ashwagandha, and then zinc-rich nettles. It can be a fantastic men's hormonal health. Herbs. So, geez, I'm getting all crazy on you. So that's a pretty good list. That's a pretty good list to start with, right? So you could do, like, let's say, as a dude, you don't have many issues, you don't think, but maybe it's smart to do some ashwagandha, do a run of ashwagandha, some saw palmetto, do some garlic. You'd catch most of the stuff on there, right? And it would help any kind of like hormone irregularity anytime, which is very, very good. But I would say biggest thing is focus in and ask your doctor. Like a lot of times we can do what they call stacking. So you go after one specific, area, let's say once a month or, every other month or something where you can really hone in, your herbal remedies and treatments like that. Okay. So biggest thing is putting this all together. This is a lot of information tonight, so I apologize. But if you are a subscriber to the Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey on Rumble or the Prize Inside a Chiropractor's Journey on YouTube, you can go back and watch a lot of this stuff. Or if you become a member of my newsletter, Tribe1, TRIBE1, that's substack.com, you'll have the whole thing anyway. So just remember all those. I'm so close, guys, like 85. I think because Rumble says if I get up to like 100 subscribers, then I get to like have my cool like prize inside is like a .com or something. So I'm pretty pumped about that. So anyway, so putting it all together, get the article. So this game plan article I'm going to have on there. So I'm going to have the regular newsletter and this game plan one for my subscribers out there. Start with 3 simple starter protocols like the women have. You pick one of those starter protocols, walk it through with your doctor, and then just take a look and see how we can do, right? Then the men have a couple. You can try some herb that has something to do with, especially ashwagandha. Very easy, guys. Not hard to jump on that ship, right? Eventually, if you watch me enough on these herbal nights, you'll understand teas versus tinctures versus capsules. Give yourself weeks, though. This is hormonal changes, okay? So it didn't happen overnight. A lot of times you'll have to stay with these type of protocols for several weeks. Like, I think they say 6 to 12 weeks. I think it's longer than that. I really do. I think it's one of those where you have to give yourself time. Most people take it for like 3 days. And if it's not better, it's just over. Especially my poor menopause people. They're just looking for something to help them, as bad as that is, but you have to stick with the stuff. Right. So, but what was cool was, if you noticed, I thought this was kind of neat. Couples can actually share herbs, right? It wasn't about just men and women, but you saw a lot of overlap there, right? And so that kind of can be nice when you have a couple like that and you want to share the herbs because it's all the same kind of situation, especially if you kind of look and study and say, okay, I can take this for this, those kind of things. It's pretty awesome. So just remember that part. just remember all the medical stuff first. Make sure you're seeking a physician, blah, blah, blah. If you got medicine, blah, blah, blah. Don't take, I'm not giving you any advice on taking anything. I just wanted to give you look at the potential, right? Look at the potential of what you could take in there, and it'll be fantastic. So what are we going to do for our week? Our Sunday, you know how this works. You're going to join my newsletter, tribe1.substack.com. You're also going to start on a regular chiropractic care, because if we want to take care of the communication system, the ultimate communication system of your body is your nervous system. Start there. Take a look at your gut microbiome, because if you take a bunch of herbs, what happens if they don't work? You blame the herbs, but is it your gut microbiome not digesting that? Very good opportunity. And remember, full script up here is where you can get some supplements. That's that little QR code up there. All right. So that was a ton of talking. I felt like we were running fast, guys. I apologize. So hopefully you got a lot out of this. If not, run it back. There was a lot of cool herbs there. I'm hoping to do this where we kind of start putting like these cool game plans together, so we can look at different things, and if you guys ever want, like a topic, in the herbal space, let me know. That would be fantastic. So we're wrapping up tonight. Before I do, though, remember Wednesday night, 8:30, I got a special guest. It's going to be fun. We're going to be a man that got one of my oldest, crotchetiest patients to move, and I couldn't believe he did it. And now my oldest and crotchetiest patient loves going, and he goes all the time. So I needed to interview his instructor, which I'm really excited about doing. We get to do that Wednesday night, 8:30, for Whole Health Weekly. And stay tuned. I got 3 or 4 cool interviews kind of lining up. So this will be a fun year, at the end, getting back into that interview flow. But just remember that. Look at all those different ones. Understand, if you have these hormonal things, don't get overwhelmed too fast. Let's start understanding what they are. And then maybe we got a better chance at really kind of going after it and changing our game for the better. Okay. So with that said, had a great week and enjoy it. My dog, Allie, turns 21 tomorrow. Woo! So that'll be pretty fun. But with that said, you guys enjoy the rest of your night and have a good night.